Cassidy Monroe stared at the departure board through tears she refused to let fall. Gate 47 had changed to departed exactly 3 minutes ago. 3 minutes that separated her from the job interview that could save everything. 3 minutes that felt like the universe laughing at her attempts to keep her life together. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass window overlooking the tarmac, watching planes take off into the gray Chicago morning. Somewhere out there was the flight she was supposed to be on, carrying her one chance at redemption to Boston without her, when everything falls, apper 24 hours ago. Cassidy had been confident. She had packed her interview outfit carefully, printed 5 copies of her portfolio, and even splurged on a new pair of shoes that didn't hurt her feet. She was going to walk into Bennett Digital Marketing, show them exactly why they needed her. Then her younger brother called from the hospital. Appendicitis. Emergency surgery. Their mother was overseas visiting family. Their father had passed away 2 years ago and there was nobody else. Cassidy had rushed to Northwestern Memorial, held her brother's hand through the pre-op anxiety, waited through surgery, and stayed until he was stable and resting. By the time she made it to O'Hare International Airport, running on gas station coffee and pure determination, she had missed her carefully planned flight by those cruel 3 minutes, the last seat. Available, the ticket counter agent looked at her with practiced sympathy. Cassidy recognized that expression. It was the same one her landlord wore when she asked for an extension on rent. The same one her boss had when he explained the company was downsizing and her position was being eliminated. The same one that meant, "I understand your problem, but I cannot fix it." "There is one seat left on the 2:15 flight," the agent said, clicking through her computer screen. "Gets you into Boston at 9:30 tonight? Your interview is tomorrow morning at 9, correct?" Cassidy nodded, not trusting her voice. She had spent her last available credit card space on the original ticket. This new one would cost extra money she absolutely did not have. But what choice did she have? Turn around and go back to her empty apartment and accept defeat. "I'll take it," she whispered. The stranger in seat 12 BTH Airport felt like a maze of exhausted people and overpriced everything. Cassidy bought a bottle of water she couldn't afford and a granola bar that tasted like cardboard mixed with false hope. Her phone battery was at 12%, because of course the charger had stopped working last week. She found her gate and collapsed into a chair. Her portfolio bag clutched against her chest like a shield. Inside were samples of every campaign she had ever worked on, every creative brief, every successful project that proved she was good at what she did, that she mattered. Boarding for Flight 447 to Boston will begin in 15 minutes. The gate agent announced. Cassidy closed her eyes and tried to remember the last time she had slept. Really slept, not just closed her eyes while her brain ran through worst-case scenarios. Was it 2 days ago? 3? Time had become a blur of hospital waiting rooms and anxiety. 40 hours without sleep. The boarding process felt like moving through water. Cassidy shuffled down the aisle of the plane, checking seat numbers through eyes that kept trying to close on their own. 1-2A, her boarding pass said. Window seat. At least she could lean against something. She found her row and stopped. Someone was already sitting in the middle seat, 1-B, a man in his mid-30s, wearing a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. He was working on a laptop, fingers moving across the keyboard with the kind of confidence that came from knowing exactly what you were doing with your life. "Excuse me?" Cassidy managed, her voice rough from exhaustion. He looked up, and for a moment she forgot how to breathe. Not because he was handsome, though he was, in that sharp-featured way that belonged on magazine covers, but because his eyes were kind. Genuinely kind, not the polite kindness strangers perform for each other, in confined spaces, of course. He closed his laptop and stood, moving into the aisle so she could slide past. "Thank you," Cassidy mumbled, squeezing into her seat and immediately fumbling with the seatbelt. Her hands were shaking from too much coffee and too little food. The portfolio that held her dreams. She pulled her portfolio out from her bag, thinking she should review her work one more time, make sure she could talk about each project without stumbling over her words. But when she opened it, the pages blurred together. The photos of successful ad campaigns, the testimonials from satisfied clients, the proof that she was capable and creative and worth hiring, it all swam in front of her eyes. "Are you all right?" The voice came from beside her. Cassidy turned to find the man from one to be looking at her with concern. She realized her hands were trembling so badly the pages were shaking. "Fine," she lied automatically. "Just tired." That seems like an understatement. His tone was gentle, not judgmental. She meant to say something polite and dismissive, something that would end the conversation and let her retreat back into her bubble of exhausted anxiety. Instead, what came out was the truth. "I haven't slept in 40 hours. My brother had emergency surgery. I missed my flight. I have a job interview tomorrow morning that I absolutely cannot fail because I have no backup plan and my savings account has $17 in it, and I am so tired I can barely remember my own name." She stopped abruptly, horrified at herself. You did not tell your problems to random strangers on airplanes. That was not how functioning adults behaved, but the man did not look uncomfortable or annoyed. He simply nodded, as if people confessed their life struggles to him regularly. "That sounds incredibly difficult," he said quietly. "I am sorry you were going through that." Something about the sincerity in his voice made Cassidy's eyes sting with tears. She absolutely could not cry right now, taking off into uncertainty. Flight attendant began the safety demonstration. Cassidy tried to focus on the hand gestures about oxygen masks and emergency exits, but her eyelids felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds each. She clutched her portfolio tighter, determined to stay awake and review her work. The plane began taxiing toward the runway. The gentle movement combined with the warmth of the cabin created a dangerous lullaby. Cassidy's head nodded forward, then jerked back up. She blinked hard, forced her eyes wide open. "You should sleep," the man beside her said softly. "You need it." "Cannot," Cassidy slurred, her words already blending together. "Have to prepare. Have to be ready. Have to prove I am good enough." The engines roared as the plane accelerated down the runway. The ground fell away beneath them, and Chicago became a patchwork of lights and streets below. Cassidy felt the portfolio slipping from her fingers, but could not seem to make her hands grip tighter. Her last conscious thought before exhaustion, I finally claimed her, was that she was failing again. Failing to stay awake. Failing to prepare. Failing at the simple act of keeping herself together. She did not feel her head tilt sideways. Did not notice when it came to rest against the shoulder of the stranger in seat. 1-2B did not hear him catch her portfolio before it fell to the floor. Did not know that Jonathan Pierce, founder and CEO of Pierce Technologies, was staring down at the face of a woman who looked like she carried the weight of the world, and wondering why he felt the sudden need to help her carry it. Jonathan Pierce had been in thousands of uncomfortable situations throughout his career. Board meetings where investors questioned his every decision. Presentations where millions of dollars hung on his ability to convince skeptical executives. Negotiations where one wrong word could destroy. Partnerships years in the making, but an exhausted stranger sleeping on his shoulder while mumbling about proving herself. That was entirely new territory. He sat perfectly still, afraid any movement might wake her. Her breathing had evened out into the deep rhythm of someone who desperately needed rest. A strand of dark hair had fallen across her face, and he resisted the odd impulse to brush it away. The portfolio she had been clutching lay open on his lap, where he had caught it. Jonathan told himself he was simply preventing important documents from falling to the floor. That was all. He was not invading her privacy by looking at the carefully organized pages of marketing campaigns and creative strategies, except he was looking. And what he saw made him pause. Discovering Cassidy's the first page showed a campaign for a small nonprofit organization. The photos were simple but powerful, the copy sharp and emotionally resonant. In the margin, someone had written in pen, "Pro bono work." They had no budget, but deserved to be heard. Jonathan flipped through more pages. A restaurant rebrand that had increased their customer base by 60%. A social media strategy for a local bookstore that had gone viral. Each project was documented with before and after metrics, testimonials, and clear evidence of success. but it was the handwritten notes scattered throughout that caught his attention. Little reminders and encouragements written to herself. You created something beautiful here. This idea came from your heart. Remember why you started. This was not just a portfolio. This was a record of someone who cared deeply about her work. Someone who poured herself into making other people's dreams succeed. The letter that revealed everything, a folded paper slipped from between the pages. Jonathan caught it before it fell. He should not unfold it. Should not read private correspondence. Should respect boundaries and mind his own business. He unfolded it. It was a resignation letter dated 3 weeks ago. Formal language about appreciating opportunities and wishing the company well. Standard corporate goodbye. But at the bottom, below the signature line, was another handwritten note. This one in rushed, desperate script. I gave them 3 years. I made their campaigns successful. I stayed late. I worked weekends. I believed loyalty mattered. They eliminated my position to save money for executive bonuses. I am 26 years old and starting over with nothing. I am terrified. But I have to believe I am worth more than how they valued me. Jonathan read those words twice, then a third time. He recognized something in them. A familiar ache he had not felt in years. Not since he was young and hungry and trying to prove himself in a world that kept telling him he was not enough yet. When turbulence hits. Plane hit an air pocket and dropped suddenly. Several passengers gasped. The seatbelt sign dinged on with the captain's calm voice explaining they were experiencing minor turbulence. Cassidy stirred against his shoulder, murmuring something incomprehensible. Jonathan instinctively steadied her, his hand briefly touching her arm to keep her from jerking awake in panic. She settled back into sleep, her face relaxing again. Up close, he could see the exhaustion written in the shadows under her eyes. The tension, even sleep, could not fully erase from her features. She looked young and impossibly worn down at the same time. The turbulence passed. Jonathan carefully tucked the resignation letter back into the portfolio and closed it, resting it safely on his own lap. He told himself he was simply being helpful, protective of important documents. Nothing more. The conversation that should not have happened 20 minutes later, Cassidy woke with a start. Her eyes flew open, confused about where she was. Then awareness crashed in like a cold wave. She jerked upright so fast she nearly headbutted Jonathan's chin. "Oh no," she breathed, horror spreading across her face. "Oh no, no, no. I fell asleep on you. I am so sorry. I am mortified. I should be banned from airplanes." Jonathan found himself almost smiling. It was quite all right. You clearly needed the rest. That does not make it less embarrassing. Cassidy pressed her hands to her cheeks, which had gone bright red. Did I drool? Please tell me I did not drool. No drooling occurred. He kept his tone serious, but something about her genuine distress was oddly endearing. Small mercies. She noticed her portfolio on his lap. Oh God, you had to hold my stuff too. I am the worst plane passenger in history, actually. I found your work quite impressive. Cassidy froze, her eyes going wide. You looked through my portfolio. It fell open. I was preventing it from sliding to the floor. Jonathan knew this was only partially true, but her expression had shifted from embarrassment to something more vulnerable. Fear, maybe? Or hope. Truth in 30,000 feet, you read my campaigns? Cassidy asked quietly. I did. The nonprofit work was particularly strong. Authentic storytelling with emotional resonance. That is rare. She stared at him like he had just spoken a foreign language. You understood what I was trying to do. I have been in business for 15 years. I recognize quality work when I see it. Cassidy laughed, but it was a brittle sound. Apparently my last employer did not share that assessment. She stopped abruptly, looking embarrassed again. Sorry, you do not need to hear my problems. I have 2 hours until we land. Jonathan surprised himself by saying, and I am genuinely curious. What happened? So she told him, not the sanitized version you tell at networking events, but the real story. How she had worked for a mid-sized marketing firm in Chicago. How she had generated successful campaigns that brought in new clients. How she had trained junior staff and mentored. interns and volunteered for the difficult projects nobody else wanted, and then one Monday morning, they called her into a conference room and told her the company was restructuring. Her position was being eliminated. Nothing personal, just business. They gave her 2 weeks severance and a cardboard box for her desk items. The executive who fired me got a bonus 3 months later, Cassidy said, staring at her hands. I saw it announced in the company newsletter they still send to my old email. Efficiency improvements, they called it. I guess I was inefficient. When success meets struggle, we're not inefficient, Jonathan said firmly. You are expendable to people who only understand spreadsheets, not value. Cassidy looked up at him, really looked. Seeing him clearly for the first time, who are you? Jonathan Pierce. He extended his hand formally, though they had already shared far more intimate space. She shook it, I'll grip stronger than he expected. Cassidy Monroe. Professional airplane shoulder user and recently unemployed marketing coordinator. What is the interview for tomorrow? Assistant position at Bennett Digital Marketing in Boston. It is a step down from what I was doing, less pay, fewer responsibilities. But it is something. It is a chance. She smiled sadly. If I do not completely mess it up by showing up exhausted and unprepared, you will not mess it up. You cannot know that. The unexpected confession, Jonathan was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. When I was 24, I had an idea for software that could revolutionize how companies manage their technology infrastructure. I pitched it to 17 venture capital firms. All 17 rejected me. Told me the market was saturated. My idea was not innovative enough. I did not have enough experience. Cassidy listened, her full attention on him now. The 18th firm gave me a chance, Jonathan continued. Not because my pitch was better. Not because I suddenly gained experience overnight, but because one partner saw something in me that others had. Its determination, vision, the willingness to work harder than anyone else in the room. He looked at her directly. I built Pierce Technologies from that one chance. We are now valued at $3 billion. We have offices in 12 countries. We employ over 5,000 people. And it all started because someone believed I was worth more than my rejection letters suggested. A moment of connection, Cassidy's eyes had gone wide. Pierce Technologies? You are Jonathan Pierce? The Jonathan Pierce. Is there another one? I have read articles about you. Case studies in business school? You are legendary. I am a person who got lucky and worked hard, in that order. He smiled slightly. And you are someone with clear talent who has not gotten her lucky break yet. But that does not mean you will not. How can you be so sure? Because I spent 20 minutes reading your work, and it is exceptional. Because you care enough to take pro bono clients and write yourself encouraging notes. Because you are on this plane, despite having every reason to give up. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. Cassidy's eyes were shining with unshed tears. Nobody has said anything like that to me in months. Then the people around you have not been paying attention. The question. That changes everything. The flight attendant came by offering drinks. Jonathan ordered water for both of them. When she left, Cassidy turned to him with an expression caught between hope and disbelief. Why are you being so kind to me? We are strangers. You do not owe me anything. Jonathan considered the question. He could give her a polite answer about common courtesy. He could deflect with humor. Instead, he chose honesty. Because I remember what it feels like to be exhausted and scared and convinced you are not good enough. I remember sitting in my car after rejection meetings and wondering if I should just give up and get a normal job. And I remember the people who showed me kindness when they had no reason to. They changed my life. Maybe I can pay that forward. Cassidy wiped her eyes quickly. You already have. Just by listening. By understanding. Tell me about your dream, Jonathan said. Not the backup plan. Not the safe option. If you could build your ideal career, what would it look like? Dreams at cruising altitude, Cassidy hesitated, then began to speak. Slowly at first, then with growing passion. She talked about wanting to help small businesses tell their stories, about believing that good marketing was not manipulation, but genuine connection. about seeing herself running a small agency someday, where creativity mattered more than billable hours. "I want to build campaigns that make people feel something real," she said. "Not just click a button or buy a product, but actually connect with what makes us human." Does that sound ridiculous? "It sounds like exactly the kind of thinking my company values," Jonathan replied. Cassidy laughed. "I am sure Pierce Technologies has its pick of candidates. They do not need an unemployed coordinator with $17 in her savings account. What if I told you we have an opening for a creative director position in our Boston office? Leading a team developing campaigns for our new consumer-facing products?" The offer that seemed impossible, Cassidy stopped laughing. "You are joking. I never joke about hiring decisions. You cannot offer me a job. You just met me. I drooled on your shoulder. You did not drool. And I have made billion-dollar decisions with less information than I have about you right now. But you only looked at my portfolio for 20 minutes. 20 minutes was enough." Jonathan pulled out his phone. "I'm sending you an email right now. It has details about the position, the salary range, and the contact information for our Boston HR director. After your interview tomorrow, call her. Tell her we spoke and I recommended you." Cassidy stared at the phone in his hand like it might bite her. This cannot be real. Things like this do not happen to people like me. What does that mean? People like you? People who get fired and struggle and fall asleep on strangers? The truth about worthiness. Jonathan leaned forward slightly, his expression serious. "Cassidy, listen to me carefully. Your previous employer made a mistake. A bad business decision that says everything about their values and nothing about your worth. You are talented. You are creative. You care about your work in a way that cannot be taught. Those qualities are rare and valuable," he continued, his voice gentle but firm. "I am not offering you this opportunity out of pity. I am offering it because Pierce Technologies needs people who understand that good business is about more than profit margins. We need people who see the humanity in what we do. And from everything I have seen in the last 2 hours, that person is you." Cassidy was crying now, tears sliding down her cheeks that she did not bother to wipe away. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for me?" "Because someone did it for me once," Jonathan said simply. "Because I believe in second chances. And because sometimes the universe puts people in your path for a reason. Maybe I was supposed to be in seat 1 to be today. Maybe you were supposed to fall asleep on my shoulder. Maybe this is exactly how it was meant to happen." Landing with hope, the captain's voice came over the speaker, announcing their descent into Boston. The cabin lights shifted, and outside the window, the city appeared below them, a sprawl of lights against the darkness. Cassidy wiped her face, laughing and crying at the same time. "I do not even know what to say. Say you will call our HR director tomorrow afternoon. Say you will at least consider the opportunity." "I will." She nodded, then nodded again more firmly. "I absolutely will. Thank you. Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means." "I think I do," Jonathan said quietly. As the plane descended, Cassidy looked out the window at the city where her life was about to change. 24 hours ago, she had been convinced she was heading toward failure. Now she was landing with possibility in her pocket, and the knowledge that sometimes when everything falls apart, it is just making room for something better to fall into place. The wheels touched down with a gentle bump. Passengers around them began gathering their belongings, checking phones, preparing to move forward into whatever waited for them. Cassidy turned to Jonathan one more time. "If this is a dream, please do not wake me up." "Not a dream," he promised. "Just the beginning of something new." Cassidy sat on the edge of the hotel bed at 2:47 in the morning, staring at her phone. The email from Jonathan Pierce glowed on the screen, official and real and terrifying. She had read it 17 times since landing in Boston, each time convincing herself it would disappear like a mirage. But it remained. Director of Creative Strategy, Pierce Technologies Boston Division. Salary range that made her current expectations look like pocket change. Benefits that included things she had only dreamed about. And a personal note at the bottom: call Rebecca Chen in HR after your Bennett interview. She is expecting to hear from you. JP Cassidy set the phone down and looked at her interview outfit hanging on the closet door. The safe navy blue suit she had bought on sale. The sensible shoes that did not hurt after an hour. The portfolio full of work that proved she could be reliable and competent, and exactly what Bennett Digital Marketing was looking for in an assistant position, that paid $38,000 a year in Boston, where rent for a studio apartment cost more than her entire monthly salary would be. She had been so grateful for that. Interview yesterday morning, so desperate for any opportunity, and now, 12 hours later, everything had shifted. The interview she had prepared for, Bennett Digital Marketing office, was located in a converted warehouse in South Boston. Cassidy arrived at 8:45, giving herself 15 minutes to sit in the lobby and practice her breathing exercises. The receptionist offered her coffee in a chipped mug. Motivational posters lined the walls with phrases like "hustle harder" and "success is a choice." At exactly 9 o'clock, a woman in her 40s appeared. Margot Bennett, founder and CEO. She had the harried look of someone who answered her own phones and probably stayed at the office until midnight most nights. Cassidy Monroe. Let us get started. We have a lot to cover, and I have a client call at 10. The interview room was small and windowless. Margot flipped through Cassidy's portfolio quickly, barely pausing on each page. She asked standard questions about experience and software proficiency and willingness to work. Overtime without additional compensation? This is an assistant role, Margot explained. You would be supporting our senior team, handling client communications, managing project timelines, that sort of thing. The pay is not amazing, but we offer great experience. You could work your way up in a few years. Cassidy nodded, giving the answers she had prepared. Yes, she was comfortable with administrative tasks. Yes, she understood the position was entry-level. Yes, she was willing to prove herself. But something felt wrong. A tightness in her chest that had nothing to do with nervousness. The moment of clarity or work is quite good, Margot said, closing the portfolio. Overqualified for this position, honestly. Why are you interested in a step backward? Cassidy opened her mouth to give the safe answer. The one about wanting a fresh start and being eager to learn from the ground up. But what came out instead was the truth. Because 3 weeks ago, I thought this was my only option. I thought I should be grateful for any opportunity, that I should shrink myself down to fit whatever space someone was willing to give me. Margot raised an eyebrow. And now I am not sure that is true anymore. The words hung in the air between them. Cassidy could feel the interview slipping away, could see the opportunity she had been so desperate for yesterday dissolving. But instead of panic, she felt something else. Relief. Margot studied her for a long moment. Someone made you a better offer. It was not a question. Cassidy met her gaze steadily. Someone saw my portfolio for 20 minutes on an airplane and offered me a position that matches my abilities. Instead of my desperation, the truth about settling good, Margot said, surprising her. You should take it. Cassidy blinked. What? Look, I need an assistant because I cannot afford to hire the senior-level person I actually need. You would be bored within a month and resentful within 3. Margot leaned back in her chair. I have been where you are. I know what it feels like to be so scared you will take anything offered. But I also know what happens when talented people settle. They wither. They lose the spark that made them special in the first place. She stood, extending her hand. Take the job that scares you because it is too good. Take the one that makes you think you might not be ready yet. Those are the opportunities that change lives. Cassidy shook her hand, feeling tears prick at her eyes for the second time in 12 hours. Thank you. For your honesty, thank you for yours. Margot walked her to the door. And Cassidy, when you make it big, remember the small companies trying to grow. We could use allies. The phone call that changed everything. Cassidy stood on the sidewalk outside Bennett Digital Marketing at 9:47 in the morning. She pulled out her phone and stared at the contact information Jonathan had sent. Rebecca Chen, Director of Human Resources, Pierce Technologies. Her thumb hovered over the call button. This was insane. You did not get dream jobs because you fell asleep on the right person's shoulder. You did not leap from unemployment to director-level positions overnight. Real life did not work that way, except sometimes it did. Sometimes the universe rearranged itself in unexpected ways. Sometimes kindness from strangers opened doors you did not know existed. Cassidy pressed call. The phone rang twice before a warm voice answered. Rebecca Chen speaking. Hi, my name is Cassidy Monroe. I was told to call you after speaking with Jonathan Pierce on a flight yesterday. There was a pause, then a delighted laugh. Oh, you are the portfolio woman. Jonathan sent me your work last night with a note that said, and I quote, "Clear my schedule tomorrow." I found someone exceptional. Do you know how rare it is for him to use that word? Cassidy's heart was pounding. He said that he also said you were brilliant, creative, and exactly the kind of person we need leading our new consumer division. So, Cassidy Monroe, when can you come in to discuss making this official? The office that felt like home to Pierce Technologies Boston. Office occupied 3 floors of a renovated historic building overlooking the harbor. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the space with natural light. The walls displayed art from local artists. The break room had a real espresso machine and fresh fruit and none of the sad. Chipped mugs from Bennett's lobby. Rebecca Chen gave Cassidy a tour while explaining the position. They needed someone to lead the creative team developing campaigns for Pierce Technologies' new line of consumer products. Smart home devices that prioritize privacy and user experience. Technology that actually improved people's lives instead of just extracting their data. We have brilliant engineers, Rebecca explained. But we need someone who understands storytelling. Someone who can help people see not just what our products do, but why they matter. They passed through an open workspace where a diverse team was gathered around a conference table, laughing at something on a laptop screen. The energy was different from anywhere Cassidy had worked before. People seemed genuinely engaged, not just performing engagement, meeting the team that needed her. This is the creative team you would be leading, Becca said, guiding her into a bright conference room. Everyone, this is Cassidy Monroe. 5 faces turned toward her with expressions ranging from curious to hopeful. A young man with purple hair spoke first. Please tell me you are not another corporate clone who thinks. Creativity means using 2 fonts instead of 1. Cassidy surprised herself by laughing. I once got reprimanded for using an illustration in a PowerPoint because it was too whimsical. Does that count? The team visibly relaxed. A woman in her 30s smiled. I am Priya. That pessimist over there is Nathan. Welcome to the island of misfit creatives who accidentally ended up at a tech company. Best accident of my life, Nathan added. Jonathan actually listens to ideas. Revolutionary concept. They spent an hour discussing current projects, challenges, and dreams for where the department could go. Cassidy found herself talking about her philosophy of marketing as authentic connection, about respecting the audience's intelligence, about building campaigns that made people feel seen rather than sold to. The team leaned in, asking questions, building on her ideas. Priya pulled up examples of their recent work, asking for honest feedback. Nathan shared a campaign concept he had been developing, was not sure how to execute. Cassidy felt something click into place. This was what she had been looking for without knowing it. Not just a job, but a place where her ideas mattered. Where creativity was valued instead of tolerated. The conversation about worth after the team meeting. Rebecca walked Cassidy to a private office. Jonathan asked me to give you time to think. No pressure to decide today. But I am supposed to tell you something. She handed Cassidy a folder. Inside was a formal offer letter with a salary that made her hands shake. Below it, a handwritten note on Pierce Technologies' letterhead. Cassidy, I meant what I said on the plane. You are exceptionally talented. This offer reflects your actual value, not your desperation. Take time to consider it. But know that we would be honored to have you join our team. The shoulder incident is not mentioned anywhere in your official file. J.P. Cassidy laughed and cried at the same time. Rebecca handed her a tissue box. He does this sometimes, Rebecca said gently. Finds people who have been overlooked and gives them opportunities to shine. It is not charity. Jonathan is too shrewd a businessman for that. He genuinely believes you will make Pierce Technologies better, How could he be so sure after one conversation? Because Jonathan Pierce built a $3 billion company by trusting his instincts about people. And his instincts about you are clearly very strong. The choice that defined her future. Cassidy walked along the harbor after leaving the Pierce Technologies office. Seagulls wheeled overhead. The water reflected the afternoon sun in dancing patterns. She thought about the two paths in front of her. She could go home to Chicago, tell everyone the Boston opportunity had not worked out, find another assistant position somewhere, play it safe and small and grateful for whatever scraps came her way, or she could choose to believe. Jonathan Pierce was right about her. She could bet on herself the way he was betting on her. She could step into the possibility that maybe, just maybe, she was worth more than her rejection letters suggested. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered, "Cassidy. This is Jonathan. Hi." Her voice came out steadier than she expected. "Rebecca told me you met the team. What did you think?" "I think they are brilliant. I think the position is incredible. I think I might be terrified." "Good," Jonathan said. "If you are not scared, the opportunity would not be big enough. Fear means you are growing. The wisdom from unexpected places." There was a pause. Then Jonathan continued, his tone more personal than professional. "Can I tell you something? That 18th venture capital firm, the one that finally funded me, the partner who believed in me, told me that confidence is not about knowing you will succeed. It is about deciding you are worth the attempt regardless of the outcome." Cassidy closed her eyes, letting the words sink in. "You showed up for that Bennett interview, even after being fired. Losing everything, sitting with your brother through surgery, and not sleeping for 2 days," Jonathan said. "You did not give up. That tells me you already have the most important quality for success. You keep going? What if I fail?" Cassidy whispered. "Then you will have failed at something challenging and meaningful. That is infinitely better than succeeding at playing small. And honestly, Cassidy, I do not think you are going to fail. I think you are going to be extraordinary." The moment everything changed, Cassidy thought about her handwritten notes scattered through her portfolio, the reminders she had written to herself on hard days. "You created something beautiful here. This idea came from your heart. Remember why you started." She'd been writing those notes to a future version of herself. A version that did not give up. A version that kept believing she mattered even when the world suggested otherwise. Maybe this was that future arriving sooner than expected. "I want to accept the position," Cassidy said. "I want to join your team." She could hear the smile in Jonathan's voice. "Rebecca will send over the official paperwork. Welcome to Pierce Technologies, Cassidy. I look forward to seeing what you build." 6 months later, the campaign launched on a Tuesday morning. Billboards across 12 cities. Social media content that went viral within hours. Television spots during prime time, all featuring real stories from real people about how technology could enhance human connection instead of replacing it. Cassidy stood in the Pierce Technologies conference room, watching the metrics roll in on the big screen. Her team surrounded her, cheering as engagement numbers climbed higher than projected. Jonathan appeared in the doorway, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. He had been in meetings all morning, but had clearly made time to check on the launch. "Exceptional work," he said simply. "All of you," Priya grinned. "Our fearless leader has opinions about the next campaign already. Something about authenticity and artificial intelligence." "Of course she does," Jonathan replied, catching Cassidy's eye. "That is why we hired her." The thank you that mattered after the team dispersed to celebrate. Cassidy found Jonathan alone in his office. She knocked on the open door. "Got a minute?"
Always.
He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Cassidy sat, suddenly unsure how to express what she wanted to say. 6 months ago, I was convinced I had failed at everything. I thought being fired meant I was not good enough. I thought struggling meant I was weak. And now, Jonathan asked gently, now I know that sometimes falling apart is just making room for something better. That getting fired from the wrong place freed me to find the right one. That falling asleep on a stranger's shoulder was the universe putting me exactly where I needed to be. She met his eyes. You saw something in me I had stopped seeing in myself. You gave me a chance when you had no reason to. I do not think I can ever fully express what that means. The real gift. Jonathan was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled open his desk drawer and took out a folded piece of paper. Cassidy recognized it immediately. Her resignation letter from her old job, the one that had fallen from her portfolio on the plane. You kept that? I kept the note you wrote at the bottom, Jonathan said. I am 26 years old and starting over with nothing. I am terrified. But I have to believe I am worth more than how they valued me. He slid the paper across the desk to her. I kept it because those words reminded me of my younger self, and because I wanted to make sure you eventually saw that you were right. You are worth more. Cassidy picked up the letter. Reading her own desperate words from what felt like a lifetime ago. You did not need me to save you, Cassidy, Jonathan continued. You saved yourself the moment you got on that plane, despite having every reason to quit. I just happened to have a shoulder available when you needed to rest for a moment. The rest? That was all you. The future that began with kindness. Cassidy left Jonathan's office as the sun set over Boston Harbor, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. She thought about the chain of events that had led her here. The firing that had felt like the end. The brother's surgery that had made her miss her flight. The exhaustion that had made her fall asleep on a stranger. Every piece had been necessary. Every moment had mattered. Her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Saw your campaign on television? Your father would be so proud. I am proud. You did it, sweetheart. Cassidy smiled, tears sliding down her cheeks. Yes, she had done it. But not alone. Never alone. She had learned that sometimes the universe sends help in unexpected forms. Sometimes kindness from strangers changes everything. Sometimes falling asleep on the right shoulder leads you to wake up in a completely different life. And sometimes, when you are brave enough to believe you are worth more than your worst moments suggest, the world rises to meet you there. Cassidy walked toward the train station. Her reflection in the office building windows showing someone confident and capable and heading home after a successful day. She barely recognized the woman she had been 6 months ago, the one who had clutched her portfolio with desperate hands and thought an assistant position was her only option. That woman had been strong too, strong enough to keep going when everything said to stop, strong enough to board a plane when giving up would have been easier, strong enough to fall asleep on a billionaire's shoulder and wake up to discover that sometimes, when you think you have lost everything, you are actually standing at the beginning of something extraordinary. The end.